Okay, we are back. We are live. Let me just arrange the stream on Clap Me, and then I think we will be good. I still have PTSD from my microphone wahala. Okay, my microphone is working. Awesome stuff. Okay, so we're streaming. We're streaming live of P this morning. Today is day 4, I think. Today is day 4. I mean, technically it's day 3 because I didn't stream on Sunday. And I don't expect that we'll be streaming on Sundays. So it's gonna be Mondays till Saturdays. Um, Also still trying to decide on if 2 streams is something I want to continue in the long term. Okay, so I was saying, I don't know if it's something I want to continue long term, but we will try to stay on that particular plan for at least the first 2 weeks, so we have like enough data to be able to make, these decisions, I guess. All puppets will be destroyed. Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking about what's the thing? Why my startup failed? I think off the bat, I should specify that a lot of things that is dependent on what you find to. Sorry, we can't talk about failure without this type of crisis. Okay, okay, that was all right. So where were we? So the whole idea of startups and failures. I think after doing, let me see, one, two, three. After doing 3 different startups, one is still running, one is completely dead, and the other one is in hibernation. I think, and then if I say I've spent how many hours? I wouldn't measure what I've done in terms of hours. I would say I've spent the last
After all,
4 or 5 years doing the whole startup thing, and
I want to hear.
I think that I've learned a few lessons in the time, and here I would be talking on this stream a few of those lessons that I learned, and hopefully, if anybody finds these things useful, then obviously, please use them. I have a personal running joke. There are a couple of advice that I have never used. Like I have knowledge of the advice, but I've never used the advice. So I'll share it, and if it's useful to you, awesome stuff. And if it's not useful to you, well. It's completely fine. Okay, so I think I would say the first lesson I would talk about would be when it comes to learning and upskilling. And the reason why I like to start from here is because there are a lot of views when it comes to learning, like especially if you want to, but actually with anything you want to do in life, it's like people have opinions on what you should spend your time doing. And I wouldn't say I have an opinion on what you should spend your time doing. I just know what worked for me, what didn't. And what did not work for me was reading 100 books in 1 year or reading 30 books per month or any of those things. I feel like once you get into once you're reading and like your focus, whoa, this is tough. Okay, once your focus is on like meeting any particular benchmark, you know, with regards to reading, then it stops being reading and it becomes more about reading being the metric. It's not about learning. Like you're not targeting learning, you're targeting consuming a large amount of information, regardless of what outcome you get. Which I think, in my own opinion, is sort of like counterintuitive to what you're trying to do. So I think I would open the stream by, with my first advice being, don't go reading 3,000 books in a month or 100 books in a month, and definitely don't jump on the bandwagon of people that sort of like compress books into, I don't know, any sort of compression of books basically is definitely not going to help you. I get that we don't have, like, everybody doesn't have time. Everybody seems to be very, very busy these days. And because of that, what I would say is, instead of saying you want to read X number of books in Y amount of time, why don't you change it to I want to learn something new. I want to spend 3 hours of my day learning something new, or learning something better, or like generally improving at something. I think it's a useful, very, very useful um, use of your time as opposed to just consuming like content 24/7 without any particular end game in mind. So I think that was like the first thing that I would say jumps out to me. The second thing I would say jumps out to me when it comes to starting with that is that I need to beat this guy. Harry watch. Okay, so yeah, the second thing I would say is
No survivors here. What do we do?
take your time, right? So there's something, um, and this is also, I think that this is also a bit divisive in the sense that a lot of people feel different ways about this particular uh, topic. Should I call it a topic? I don't know. So let's see. Basically, there is one school of thought that says anything worth doing is, worth doing well, obviously. So you should absolutely not take forever to build your MVP. Um, but when you do build an MVP, the MVP is supposed to be perfect because you're competing against other products that are already well built and amazingly optimized and all of that. And it makes sense because if, for example, you were building a ride sharing app like Uber or Bolt or InDrive, something like that, one of the things you have to understand off the bat is the fact that your potential users already have experienced Uber, they've experienced Bolt, they've experienced the InDrive, and when they interact with your MVP, they're going to be measuring you against what is already out there. And your MVP is supposed to help them answer this question. Why should I stop using what I'm currently using and start using your product? And I mean, it doesn't help if your product, that I want to use is not as polished as, said competition. That would not make any sense. And so, I think that's why the school of thought is quite divisive in the sense that on one hand, they tell you don't take too long to build out an MVP and ship because you could be building something that people don't want, right? And the earlier you figure that out, the better for you. The earlier you get feedback from the market and know that people don't really want what you thought they wanted or care very, very much about what you thought they would care about. I think the faster you can begin to iterate in the direction that is with the market. Problem is, if you don't get out very quickly, chances are it's not very, very polished. It has a couple of bugs and stuff like that. So it's like, where is the balance? Like, I want to put out an MVP, but I don't want to take forever. This is what I would say. I would say, let me finish writing. It's okay now. Bro. Wow. See why they say you should not rush your MVP. Look at the way my MVP was handed to me so quickly. That was a painful review by a customer. This is how far back I'm starting. I think I opened a couple of shortcuts. I think shortcut is here. Yes, this is the shortcut. Then this way. I still have to. So let's quickly beat the boss. Let's quickly destroy that bad guy. And then we come back to this one. Iris, high reward. Okay. Let's do it again. What am I doing? Let me move now. Okay. So, okay, so yeah. Um, I would say don't build your application in a week and ship it ugly. But then I would also say you shouldn't spend 2 years building an MVP. I think that's way too long. Someone will ask, what's the ideal time that you would recommend someone should take so that an MVP? And I think I would say between 1 month and 3 months. I think 3 months is the absolute maximum you should take building out an MVP. If you take any longer, there is a very, very high chance that the market will change on you. Very, very high. Because especially, depending on the type of industry you're in, there is a very, very strong likelihood, especially when you're dealing with technology, the market moves very, very quickly. So it means that in the time where you identify a problem you could solve and you started building and optimizing a solution for said problem, people's behavior in terms of how they approach the problem, how painful the problem is to them, how much money they are going to spend trying to solve that problem. People's buying behavior can change in the time it takes you to see a solution, start building the solution, and rolling it out to the market. And in that time, what now happens is by the time you get to the market, it's almost like the market has moved on. And then what seemed like an amazing idea, brilliant idea, now doesn't seem so amazing or so brilliant, and it almost seems like the time and the resources that has been put into building said MVP was wasted. Usually that's what translates to someone saying, I did a startup and it failed. Usually the failure point was not um, it was not a point of failure as much as taking too much time to roll out the solution to the people that need it. Because the earlier you get to the market with the solution, the earlier the market can tell you what they like and what they do not like about that solution, and then you can begin to iterate. Or, just realize that it's probably not a great idea and call it a day, one of the two.
Wow, cool heart you got there. Come here for a sec, would you?
I will come.
Why don't we Mr. Beloved?
Alright, I've been given another Legion arm, which I'm not interested in, to be honest. I'm also not ready for any upgrades or updates or any of those shenanigans.
You say
He's on the first floor. So why do some people call it the first floor and then some people call it the second floor? So weird. I know it as ground floor, first floor, but some people know it as first floor, second floor. That's so weird.
You've returned. Forgive the sentiment far for worrying about his son. Always remember that you're precious to me, even when I ask you to do something dangerous. Speaking of which, my friend.
Okay, so
P. Morgan.
the other thing I would say is, let's just make sure this stream is still running fine.
Get the strength.
Yeah, the stream is still running fine. How about I tell me I spent 250? Come on, it's not possible. Okay, so where was I? Why is the heart beating so hard?
Remember, be careful where.
Yeah, I'm not ready for this right now.
You get from City Hall.
Okay, so from City Hall, I need to fast travel back to the City Hall. Please. Let's just be sure there isn't anybody else to talk to. There is nobody else. Okay. Whoa, hold on. We can talk to this person. Okay, so the other thing I would say is regards to marketing. So you built an MVP in record time. You're ready to get it out to the market. Here's the thing. When you have a platform like this and you are, you're trying to like get it out to multiple people, this is a very, very interesting position to be in. Um, I would say that you definitely should take advantage of as many marketing channels as you can. Um, there's this thing I felt when I first built built an MVP, and that was I was worried about how people would see what I had built, if they would like it and stuff like that. If you are curating who sees your application, then who exactly are you building it for? Because ow. Because if you are shy about what you built, then exactly how do you want to sell it? And then if you're not shy, then why don't you go for the maximum amount of exposure that your app can get? And the point I'm trying to make is you should absolutely splurge on marketing channels. Like, don't even compromise. It doesn't even make any sense. Not, not like use as many marketing channels as you can. Okay, that was a bit intense. So you should absolutely use as many marketing channels as you can, as in whatever you have, your network, Reddit, X, formerly called Twitter. Funny how even after all this time we still have to write formerly called Twitter because chances are that's what they recognize. Yeah. Okay, so the woman I'm looking for here, I spoke to her earlier in a window. Trying to recognize the window. All these windows look like. Hey boy. I expect like no, I haven't. That is particularly weird. Anyway, so and please don't depend on cold emails for like your initial marketing run. That is suicide. As far as I'm concerned, that is pure unadulterated suicide. Okay. That's that. I think that's what I'm kind of doing it. That's what I'm doing. How do you fight both of them at the same time? Like that. That's how you do it. Okay. Okay, so it's not where I thought it was. It's not here. I need to go find that person. I'm going to say something that's very, very controversial. Okay, fine, it's not very controversial, but it's going to piss a couple of people off. So, I run a dev shop, yeah? And one of the perks of running a dev shop is you get to hear a lot of ideas of stuff people want you to build for them. I think this is the person.
You look exactly like my hair, but...
Okay, so that is done. Cool. I think we can go back to what we were doing. Yeah, so this is gonna piss a couple of people off, but it needs to be said. I get assaulted with a lot of ideas, and there is something that is quite difficult to tell a client, but is absolutely necessary to tell a client, and that is you know those ideas that sound so easy and exciting, and it's like nobody has done this before, no one's currently looking at this particular niche part of the market, and it's like you're so brilliant for figuring this out. Like, how come nobody ever thought of this? God damn, you must be very, very smart. I promise you, that's not it. Uh, chances are there is a reason why nobody has either solved the problem the way you're currently thinking about it, two, even attempted to solve the problem, and finally, three, isn't currently solving the problem the way you want to solve the problem. There is 9 times out of 10 something you're missing. Now, the the next reaction and urge is to disagree. You're gonna disagree with me and say, "What about nothing like Uber when Uber was created?" Nobody's arguing with you. I swear, nobody's arguing with you. My point is, what Uber saw already existed. They just optimized, right? So you need to ask yourself a question that if you can't find someone else who's doing what you're doing in some sort of way, then what are you missing? I feel like that's the point I'm trying to make here. You're missing something. Because you're missing something, you need to. I tell a lot of founders that, like, have you done your market research? And what you did with ChatGPT and Perplexity does not count as market research. It's your foundation for market research. You still need to interact with potential users. You need to interact with people who are solving the problems completely different from the way you want to solve it. So you understand exactly what their experiences are, what their blockers are, and you definitely need to do what we in the old school call a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You definitely need to do that. And if at the end of your analysis and market research, you still feel like, yes, this is novel and it absolutely makes sense, then by all means, go ahead and build it. But one of the things you would see, like the trend is a lot of people don't have this data. You don't have data that suggests that this is the reason why no one is doing it. You don't have any data that speaks to what it is other people who tried, this solution experienced and why they did not pursue it. And I promise you, if you can only find 2 people in the entire world who are doing exactly what you're doing, you are either doing something extremely novel or you are doing something completely outside the direction it should be done. It's one of two. And one of the applications or startup ideas I love to use to address this point is document management systems, specialized document management systems. One of the places where this is regularly brought up, especially in Africa, is the medical field, where problem statement, most hospitals have manual records that are stored in papers and folders, and they've been stored in there for years, and that data, that medical history, is not accessible by the users, it's not transferable, and it's prone to damage and can be lost forever. This data is actually very, very valuable. There is no question about the value of your medical history. And so there have been a lot of startup ideas to sort of digitize medical history and democratize access to medical history. This is a very, very common theme point. I've seen startups, I've seen, I've had clients come to talk to me and saying they want to build something like that. And it makes sense. I understand the problem, I understand the solution, I see the need for it. And then it now begs the question that, okay, so with an existing problem, an obvious direction for a solution, the technology is readily accessible, the people who need it are readily accessible, the people who this problem is going to be solved for are easily identifiable. So what is the problem? I will tell you the problem now, and I will use Nigeria as a case study. I think the first problem, and the one problem that most people don't talk about and factor in, is simply the problem is not painful enough. That's it. The problem is not painful enough. And this is one of the hardest questions when you talk to people and their grand ideas and everything. The idea is good, the idea is sound, the solution seems like it's going to change the world for good. But the thing is, it's not painful enough to get people to change their habits. And as long as it's not painful to get people to change their habits, then it's sort of like dead on arrival, you know? Because the reason why you're creating the startup, except if you are, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, or Bill Gates, and you're sitting down on a ridiculous amount of money that you can burn regardless of buying behavior. If you are, bootstrapping, or you're, hoping to raise in order to do this, then, scalability and profitability become, requirements. They are absolutely necessary and not just nice to have. So if you can't, if the people who are going to be the largest beneficiaries of your solutions don't feel the pain strong enough for them to actually change their value, then maybe it's not a good idea. I know, okay, fine, that's not easy to say, but still, um, there's something wrong with the idea. I think that's all I'm going to say. There's something absolutely fundamental with the idea. What else? Ah, vibes. Vibes. Okay, so look, I don't have a problem with vibes, and it absolutely is not a thing that they actually call it vibe coding, but you go with the vibes. And so this is how I feel about vibes and vibe coding, yeah? Oh girl, it's quite resilient on. That's somebody. That's another person. I kinda knew this was a trap. There's somebody here. There he is. Daddy. Okay, so where was that? Yes, vibes. Okay. I don't know. Is this going to be controversial or not? Let's see. When it comes to vibes, yeah. Um. So you know how you have that amazing idea and you want to build it out, and yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so why you're trying to catch me? Absolutely. Okay, so now let's do it. I take a bag and I'm press escape. Wow. Never mind. That was painful. Okay, so for vibes, I think it's really, really simple. I think you should always measure things with actual numbers, actual data. and not just what you feel is the case. For example, I'll give you an example. Say the number of people that will use this app, your target demographic, how many people? At least 4 million. How do you know? How do you know it's 4 million? Or they say, what's the demographic of people that currently use the products called Bolt or Uber? What percentage of the population actually use Uber in the city of Lagos? Absolutely guessing that figure. You definitely should not be guessing that figure. You should definitely know actual numbers what that figure is. And if you are guessing, then there's already a problem. Because it means that you don't have enough information to make a decision. It now means that there is a very, very strong possibility that whatever buying or decisions you make with regards to this particular platform is going to be made with favor like wrong. I won't say false, but wrong information, basically, yeah. And that is a problem. To be honest, that is a very, very big problem. That's right. Come on, me. That's better. Really? We're making progress. You know me from somewhere. Phone call.
Another fine day in the city of Krog, but I'm now for a taste. Correct. Fantastic insight as to why.
So you remember how when we started the stream I talked about how what you define as failure. So that definition typically should come. Did you hear my voice that you're running and coming? Oh. Okay, so let's get this. How does it happen? Oh, I can do that. So yeah, I was saying that you should definitely have failure points where you sort of like define what does success look like? How do we measure it? How do we recognize it? What are the precursors for success? Like, what are the things that if these things are present or currently occurring, it means that we are most likely going to be experiencing success after a particular amount of time. And you see that particular amount of time, it must be realistic, it must be measurable, it must be finite. Yeah? Don't worry about the big English. The point is that it must be something that is currently not vibes. You have to be able to realistically say, when we started, we were at zero, we did X, Y, Z, and in doing X, Y, Z, we achieved ABC. And obviously, you can't achieve B without achieving A first. I mean, if that's how you structured it, then something's already wrong. Because, like I said, it has to be visible and measurable. So that translates to if you're going to be building platform and application, whatever it is, you have to define what success actually looks like, how you can measure it, how you can recognize it. And I'm repeating this because it is an absolutely crucial step. If you don't know what success looks like, you might be looking at the wrong metrics if you're failing. I'll give you an example. I had a client once that built out a mobile app. The mobile app was beautiful, quite amazing, and everything. And it was on App Store. Yeah, they launched it on the App Store. And they said,
It's like something's gonna jump out any second.
yeah,
Take the help. Jimmy's looking out for you.
going in the direction I don't want to go to yet. So yeah, they had a couple of downloads on the App Store, and I remember the founder coming to talk to me and saying that, oh, I thought by now we would have like thousands of people who have downloaded the app. And I was like, why did you think you would have thousands of people who have downloaded the app? What is it they told you about the app that made you think that you would already have that amount of like downloads after a few weeks? And he was like, that means that people actually like what we're doing. And I was like, how many people did you when you wanted to launch, how many users did you tell me you're targeting? And he said 100. I said, okay, 100. How many users do we currently have? I think at that time we had about 300 and something plus. And I was like, because you don't recognize that you are winning, what is actually a good thing is not being recognized by you, and you are now assuming that you have failed. Which means that chances are you will now also like something. You sort of cancel out the failure and end up solving something out. Where to get that. Yeah, it's down one. Okay, that was more stressful than you needed to be. But we survived. And so the way you measure success is what determines whether you keep going, whether you recognize the small wins as success or any small like any small hiccup or any small delay is automatically interpreted to be failure. Um, hmm. I think the other thing I will add to that, with setting a way to measure success, is also setting a way to measure failure. Because look, as optimistic as we all want to be, chances are that something that has the likelihood of succeeding also has the potential to fail, and it absolutely is useful if you are prepared for that eventuality. And And if you're absolutely prepared for that, then it makes what comes after very, very useful and valuable. So this is what I mean by planning for failure. You know how there's this saying, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Something like that. So what I'm trying to say here is basically you need to identify exactly what is failure. If Okay, so let me use real examples. If when we start this project, if by the time we get we have not launched the MA, then we may need to change the following. Okay, that was tougher than I wanted it to be. Okay, so yeah, I said you need to be able to identify what failure looks like, and what you're going to do if you fail. So I know people say, God forbid I will not fail, and that's fine, that's fine. But if you can, you know, explicitly state what will happen if the outcomes that you currently set out for yourself aren't met. Like, exactly what will I do in this scenario? Then you are absolutely prepared for the, let's say, eventuality, but you know it can, because it can happen, so to speak. You're sort of ready for it, and if you're ready for it, it wouldn't surprise you. It's a very, very annoying fight, and I don't know if I have enough to take this fight. And I have just one again. No, let's do it. Let's not be afraid. Our plan for failure is, if we fail, ouch. That was good. Heal. Yes, go. Heal. survived. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we survived. Okay, yeah, so failure points, ability to recognize what failure looks like, and then preparing for what exactly you will do if you fail. So that's not to say that you intend to fail, but if you find yourself in that scenario, that's basically what a pivot looks like. So when you hear startup founders tell you that they are pivoting, it's basically a recalibration, a change of direction based on recognized patterns. So you are saying, if we continue this particular way, we most likely will fail. And because we do not want to fail, we're going to stop doing the same thing and expecting different results, aka pivot. So, which brings me to the point I made at the beginning of the stream. It depends on what you define as failure, because a lot of times, failure isn't a surprise. Like you're not surprised by failure. You see it coming. If you're watching out for it, if you're optimizing for it, you will see it coming. And if you see it coming, then you definitely can avoid it. That is not to say that if you pivot today, you will not pivot tomorrow. I know a company that has pivoted about 4 times. But you know what I would say is an interesting part about their journey is the fact that yes, they pivoted 4 times, and in those 4 times they managed to solve something or learn a very very useful lesson that has stayed with them across the 4 years that they have been operating. And that's absolutely something that is very very useful in this startup journey, is that you have to learn something through every venture, through everything you do. There's always like some new lesson to learn. Which brings me to my final point. I would say that the fact that you are running a startup, you are entrepreneuring. Oh, this is interesting. Yes, so the fact that you are, running a startup and you are entering entrepreneurs does not mean that you should not work, not have a structured body of work. Let me explain. So the fact that you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you don't have an 8 to 5. You just have an 8 to 5 where nobody's going to be, like ensuring that you follow the rule. And the reason is because work is work, and work requires discipline and consistency. And discipline and consistency is the foundation of discipline and consistency is structure. So if you are, doing your foundering with absolutely no structure, I'm sorry to say this, it sounds hard, but you are going to pay. It's that simple. You can't vibe your way into consistency. You definitely cannot vibe your way into discipline. Wow. And so you definitely have to build structure into every single thing that you're doing. It is an absolute requirement, non-negotiable. I think that's all I can say about that. And that being said, I would say these are some of the lessons I have learned in my startup journey. That obviously some of these lessons were learned painfully, as in I made a mistake, or I didn't do something the way I was supposed to do it, or when I was supposed to do it, and there was a price to pay for said negligence. So I have shared that, which I think is, why would I have to fight people like the same time? Come on. And this one is trying tire to go and hit somebody. And this one is trying projectile. Wow, would not feel absolutely calm. Yes, you. Why are you running away? I have plans. Both of you are running away. Oh, shit, I just wasted that. I was panicking. Oh boy, I have corruption. Corruption. Okay. I should have something in my bag to fight against corruption. Yes. Okay, so we will be ending the stream very, very soon. And so far, so good. I'm still here. I wouldn't say it's getting easier, but it is looking like something I can do. Question is, why wanna continue if nobody's watching? Does it become less meaningful because no one is watching? Or the people that first started live streaming, they tried. I don't like this is a cool board. It's not easy, but so far so good. We've gotten to this point. Uh, I'd like to tell everybody thank you for joining the stream, and I will see you tomorrow or later this evening. If we do the 6 p.m. stream. Yeah, awesome stuff. All right, see ya later.